Hello and welcome back to the weekly sessions on heartfulness. Today, we will circle back to looking at and talking about the heartfulness journey and what's the larger purpose that we're working towards while we practice the meditation and cleaning technique. The purpose of heartfulness is really to realize our true inner potential. Let's plunge into the topic. So, before we put up the slide, if you want to start with an interaction as usual, you want to ask them, so what are some of the challenges that they face in regular daily life, right? So you could hear them and then put up this slide to give some idea about some of the challenges that we typically face, right? Obviously, this is only the tip of the iceberg and there are a lot more which are out there. But then the question is, if this is what we perceive as challenges, but let's kind of zoom out of the situation and really see what the real picture, big picture looks like. Right? I'm taking this metaphor yet again of an iceberg, and that a very small fraction of the iceberg is typically about water, and the bulk of it is underwater, right? And what you see above the water is an indication of what's underwater. So really, when we experience challenges at the mental level, at the emotional level, like mental chatter, like fear, like worry, like anxiety, okay, issues with our relationship and so on, they similarly point to deeper qualities or qualities like, inside of ourselves, which are more intangible and which in some sense are the root cause for what we experience outside. We all understand this concept of root cause, that what you see is really caused by something else. So many of us, okay, there are individual issues that we have in terms of qualities, right? It might be, these are what I would call negative qualities within us. For some people, it could be anger, it might be impatience, it could be intolerance, it could be greed for achievement. There's nothing wrong in having a goal, but if you're going to try and achieve that at any cost, then perhaps you would say that is greed, or at the cost of somebody else, right? I mean, it might be classified that way. It might have to do with level of sensitivity, okay, or some tendencies like negative tendencies, perhaps hate. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things, right? These are not directly manifest, but it results in some of the patterns of behavior that we see and experience. Now, when we work on ourselves, okay, neuroscience tells us that we operate at multiple levels. We operate at the conscious level, the tangible level, where we can see, where we can think, and where we can act. And then there is the larger subconscious. And neuroscience has determined that the conscious layer is really a small fraction. All our thinking, our ability for rational thought, our ability to take data, work on data, and make a decision, all of that is limited to the conscious part of our brain, which they say is just about 40 bits a second that it can process, right? It's not a whole lot. And that, on whatever we do during the day, the neuroscientists tell us that we use just about 1 to 5% of all the activities. We use the consciousness or conscious thought, or we use our brain, the prefrontal cortex. For all the rest, it's really done at a subconscious level. It's almost as if it's an automatic process, okay, where there is spontaneous response, from the subconscious. But then the neuroscientists also tell us that at the subconscious level, the capacity is far, far higher. It might even be as much as 1,000,000 times higher than what we can work at the conscious level. And that for most of the activities, we use the subconscious layer. So the question is, yes, we can work on the conscious layer, but it seems to be just, again, the tip of the iceberg, right? I mean, how do we really bring about changes at the subconscious level? And that's where this concept of working and acting at the conscious level comes in. But the real work, the real change The real transformation needs to happen at the subconscious level. So of course, we've been talking about techniques of meditation and cleaning, and we've been asking you to try and be regular in your practice of meditation and cleaning, right? So let's say you decide to meditate, you sit down at 6 o'clock in the morning, meditate for 20 minutes, right? So that's a very conscious act. It's an act of discipline. It's a thoughtful act that you sit down and meditate. But what actually happens during those 20 minutes is that while, of course, we sit with this idea that there is a source of light in the heart, and you try to observe your heart and so on for an extended period of time, you will notice that several times when you come out of meditation, that sometimes you don't know where you were. Okay, you have delved into yourself, into a deeper part of yourself. Sometimes you felt you've slept. And this is an indication that while the act of sitting in meditation is a conscious act, what really happens during meditation is that we work at the subconscious level. And that is true of cleaning itself. We've talked about it multiple times, right? At the subconscious level, what we're talking about is we're tuning ourselves, we're aligning ourselves, we're bringing about inner change and transformation. So meditation works with our mind, it trains the mind, it helps us observe what is happening inside. We're able to discern feelings from thinking to feeling. We're able to go deeper, and it really makes us more sensitive as a person. And cleaning all those intangible roadblocks, which we have accumulated based on thoughts and actions from the past, cleaning is able to, in some sense, remove those roadblocks, helping us bring about change faster. So that's really what enables this journey of inner change and inner transformation. At the core of all this is one single design principle. That whatever you are now, and you can think about it at the material level or at a deeper level, right? That whatever you're now is basically the fruit of your actions of your past, the thoughts of your past. Let's say, you're an engineer now. That's because you did work for it. You got into a good college, you've studied for it, your exams, you finished your degree, you got a job, and you're here. Similarly, what you are inside of yourself as a person in terms of a bunch of qualities, again, is based on what you've done in the past. Now you extrapolate that. What we're saying here is that, you have the choice, you have the ability. By taking actions in the present, you can actually determine what your future is. In fact, you can create your future. And that is at the core, at the essence, that is the fundamental principle on which Heartfulness works. That by acting in the present and through these techniques, by working on ourselves at a subconscious level, at a conscious level, by developing the motivation to work and get into a discipline of practice, we really bring about and we are triggering inner change and transformation. And how does this transformation work? It's not something where it works overnight. I've just tried to depict some kind of layers. Okay, it's really a very broad brushstroke that I'm trying to relate to here. Based on my experience, I've seen that initially, we talk about effortless focus. We do find that our mental chatter starts going down. Okay, we are able to get a grip on ourselves, not give ourselves to so much of short temper and anger. We find that we're more focused and hence we're able to complete work faster. This general sense of calm that you experience. So all this, I would say, is still about scratching the surface, though it might seem significant. I mean, based on our experience, we find that these are still initial signs of inner change and transformation. As it develops further, we get deeper, and there is real deeper change that starts coming out in terms of the ability to observe, the ability to feel, becoming sensitive, not just to what's happening within yourself, but also to what's happening around you. Many times, right? I mean, if we don't even realize what's happening within us, why is it that I'm behaving like this, right? If you pause, if you're introspect and you have the ability, perhaps you'll come to the conclusion, right, that you're saying what you're saying because there seems to be a sense of irritation. And what did that irritation come from? And if you're able to dig deep enough, if you can get to the root cause saying, hey, this guy said this and that really put me off because, and that's why it's causing this irritation. And that's why I'm really like, not myself today. And it's kind of really determining a lot of my behavior. So working on ourselves, observation, feeling, sensitivity, the ability, the need to work continuously on ourselves, like, we observe and we create an intent, intent to bring about change, wanting to change ourselves, become better. Now that becomes a layer. Okay, that kind of change, like, I think is at a deeper level. But at the deepest level, we're talking about things like, which are far more transformational. Rational thought is easy. It comes with focus. But what about intuition? How can we get to a state of purity from which we can operate from? It's easy to kind of shoot our mouth off, like, based on ego and based on how I feel. But it's a lot more difficult to subjugate my own needs for the needs of the other. It might be a family member. It might be somebody you love. So humility, ego, service, real inner change, lasting inner change, where our behavior has changed. Like, and then people come and say, wow, what's happened to you? I mean, there's something different about you. You don't get so angry anymore. The way, like, you speak and the way there's a lot more confidence that's coming in from you. So when others start noticing changes, right, I mean, that means it's really started to work at a deeper level as well. And perhaps most importantly, it's love. Because that seems to be the central quality, which really radiates, like, and brings about changes in everything. To become more loving, okay, and to love yourself, which radiates to loving everything around us. So that's the kind of deeper levels of transformation we're talking about. It's a progressive journey. It takes time, but continuous practice, it seems to result in this. With that, we can move to the experience. It's your choice. You can either start with meditation or cleaning. And if you've been doing heartfulness for several weeks now, maybe it's a good idea to drop relaxation and directly get to the practice of meditation or get to the practice of cleaning, because relaxation was just meant to be something to start with. So really, the takeaways, again, it's not much different from what we've been talking about. It's really to improve regularity in the practice and to make observations in your journal. And then read the journal perhaps 6 months, 1 year later, to really see what kind of inner changes, like, you are beginning to observe. Thank you for joining us today. We'll meet you again next week.